Welcome to True Echo, where every voice has a story, and every story leaves an echo. Today's tale begins with a cruel joke in a school cafeteria, and ends with a voice so powerful, it stunned the entire town. This is the story of Jania Brooks, the quiet girl no one noticed, until one note changed everything. Jania Brooks never wanted to be seen. At Westridge Middle School in Springfield, Missouri, being invisible was a kind of safety. Her world existed in the quiet margins: faded jeans, second-hand hoodie, a too-big backpack, and headphones with no sound. She kept her head low, her voice lower, and her expectations at rock bottom. Kids like her didn't get noticed for the right reasons. Until one cold Tuesday in March. Third period hadn't started yet. The cafeteria buzzed like always, plastic trays clattering, laughter echoing, cafeteria pizza steaming up in greasy curls. Jania, holding her tray of lukewarm spaghetti and overcooked carrots, was halfway to her usual seat in the back corner when a voice rang out. "Yo, Jania." It was Connor. Of course it was Connor. Golden boy. Quarterback in training. The type of kid who never failed to smile like he was already famous. His voice held that smooth, dangerous tone, the kind that made people lean in just to see who'd get burned. "You gonna try out for the talent show?" he asked, already smirking. Around him, his entourage, Macy with her cheerleader snark, Derek with his too loud laugh, and a few others, started chuckling. Jania paused mid-step, her stomach tightening. She knew this game. They weren't asking because they wanted to hear her sing. They were asking because they wanted a show. "Yeah, come on," Macy chirped. "Sing us something now. We heard you sing at church, right?" Church. That one whisper had gotten out somehow. That she sang with her grandma on Sundays. No microphones, no stages, just hymns in a tiny East Side chapel. But now it was ammunition. "I bet she doesn't even know what a mic feels like," Connor added, voice smooth like oil over ice. Laughter. Louder this time. The kind that bounced off the cinderblock walls and settled into her skin like dirt. Jania didn't cry, didn't yell. She just walked. Past them. Past the laughter. Past the pain. But the words didn't leave her mind. "She won't show up. I'll bring popcorn if she does." Those voices were still echoing when she slid into her usual corner, untouched tray in front of her. And for the first time, something inside her shifted, not into sadness, but resolve. Quiet, powerful, unfamiliar. That night at home, her grandma Miss Edna was stirring beans on the stove when Jania spoke. "I think I'm going to try out." Miss Edna paused. Wooden spoon frozen midair. Then she turned slowly, reading her granddaughter like a preacher reads scripture. "Why, baby? They dared me." A pause. Miss Edna stepped closer, hand warm as always, voice soft but strong. "Then don't do it for them. Do it for you. And if you sing with your heart. That's the only way." Jania nodded slowly. "Maybe I'll sing, 'His Eye is on the Sparrow.'" Miss Edna's smile grew. "That's your song. That song knows your voice." They practiced that night in their small kitchen, Miss Edna swaying, eyes closed, Jania gripping a wooden spoon like it was gold-plated. No audience, no lights, just a creaky floor and a young girl's fear melting into melody. And when she hit that second verse, her voice broke open like sunlight through stained glass. The morning of the talent show auditions, Jania woke before dawn, her heart already pounding. The cold floor sent a chill through her bare feet as she padded to the bathroom mirror. Her reflection stared back, tired but determined. She braided her hair back neatly, pulled on her cleanest hoodie, and stuffed her MP3 player into her backpack. No makeup, no mascara, just her and the nerves sitting heavy in her stomach. Westridge Middle looked the same that morning. Lockers slammed. Sneakers squeaked down linoleum halls. The usual cliques claimed their spaces, gossiping and laughing like always. But Jania felt different walking those halls. Like I was waiting to see if she'd actually go through with it. In homeroom, Connor strolled past her desk without a word, only flashing that cocky grin. Macy was less subtle, loud whispering to her friends, "She's really gonna do it. This is going to be hilarious." Jania said nothing. She focused on her notebook, trying to keep her hands from shaking. By lunchtime, the buzz around her audition had grown like a wildfire. "I heard she's singing that old church song. Bro, why would she do that to herself? I can't wait. This is going to be so cringe." Jania sat in her corner again, earbuds in but no sound playing. She just needed quiet. Needed to hold herself steady. She thought of her grandma's words, "Sing with your heart." She thought of the little kitchen where her voice first found a home. Just before the bell, Mr. Kinsey, the school's quiet music teacher, approached her table. He looked nervous, like he didn't want to scare her off. "Hey, Jania," he said gently. "Saw your name on the audition list." She looked up, surprised. "I just wanted to say. I'm glad you signed up." Jania blinked. "Thanks. I've seen how you listen in class," he added, "you hear music in a different way. That's rare." She didn't know what to say to that. Nobody had ever said something like that to her before. "Break a leg," he said, and walked off. By the time the final bell rang, her feet moved almost without her. Toward the auditorium. Toward the moment she still wasn't sure she could survive. The hallway buzzed with students gathered outside the double doors, hyped like it was a school dance or a fight behind the gym. They weren't there to support her. They wanted a spectacle. Inside, the auditorium was only half full, but felt massive. A boy juggled tennis balls and dropped two. A girl did a hip-hop dance and forgot her steps halfway through. A group of 8th graders lip-synced a boy band song, missing every cue. And then, it happened. "Next up," called the board assistant near the stage. "Jania Brooks." The room shifted. She stood slowly. Her legs wobbled as she climbed the 3 wooden steps. The spotlight above flickered like it couldn't decide whether she mattered enough to shine for. She approached the mic, hands trembling. In the back, someone whispered loud enough to be heard, "Here we go." She closed her eyes. Suddenly the faces blurred. The room became shapes and shadows. Her breath trembled out. She thought of Miss Edna's kitchen. The floor that creaked. The smell of cornbread. The Sunday mornings with no audience, just the Lord and her grandmother's voice harmonizing through the steam of cooking beans. Then, she sang. "I sing because I'm happy." The note was soft, barely above a whisper. But it floated. Phones lowered. Whispers died. Even the teachers paused. "I sing because I'm free." This time, her voice was stronger. Not loud, not flawless, but full of something ancient and true. It trembled not from fear, but from knowing. From remembering every moment she'd been laughed at. Every hallway she walked like a ghost. "His eye is on the sparrow." Her voice cracked slightly on "sparrow," and it made the whole thing real. That crack wasn't weakness, it was proof. Of pain. Of truth. Of strength. "And I know he watches me." When the final note drifted off the stage, the auditorium fell into the kind of silence that didn't ask for applause. It just held you. The kind of silence that comes when nobody knows what to say, because they didn't expect to be moved. Jania stood still, eyes open now. No bow. No smile. Just a stillness that came with finishing something meant to be done. She walked off stage without waiting for anyone's reaction. Outside, the cold slapped her cheeks as she stepped into the late afternoon sun. But inside her chest, a new kind of warmth had taken root. Not because she'd stunned them, but because she'd proven something to herself. That she was not invisible. Not anymore. Jania didn't go back into the auditorium. She didn't need to. The silence in that room had said more than any applause ever could. Outside, the breeze caught the edge of her hoodie as she walked toward the back fence line of the school. No one followed. No one called out. And for once, that was okay. The next morning, the shift was subtle, but real. As she stepped onto the school bus, she noticed a few glances that lasted longer than usual. Not cruel. Not mocking. Just, watching. A quiet acknowledgement. Like people weren't quite sure what to make of her anymore. In the hallway, the usual buzz greeted her, but it wasn't centered on her this time. Still, there were murmurs. That was her, right? She actually sang. She didn't suck. It wasn't flattery. It wasn't praise. But it wasn't laughter, either. For Jania, that was a monumental change. In first period, her history teacher, Mr. Elliot, gave her a quick smile. Heard you sang yesterday. Wish I could have been there. That was it. But it made her sit a little taller. Between classes, a 7th grader she didn't even know gave her a thumbs up in the hallway. She blinked, confused at first, then smiled, just a little. Macy passed her in the stairwell and, for once, didn't laugh. She didn't say much either, just muttered, "You can actually sing," and kept walking. It wasn't an apology. But it wasn't venom either. It was something Jania could live with. Connor, on the other hand, was quiet. Too quiet. She caught him looking at her twice that day, but his eyes darted away the moment she noticed. No jokes. No smirks. No swagger. Like something had been knocked loose in him, and he didn't know how to put it back together. At lunch, Jania sat in her usual corner. But this time, she wasn't entirely alone. A few students who'd never looked her way before settled a few seats away, not close enough to crowd her, but not far either. One of them, a boy named Darian from science class, leaned over and said, "My mom plays that song at church. You sang it good." She blinked again, unsure how to respond. "Thanks." He nodded like it wasn't a big deal, even though it felt like one. Mr. Kinsey found her after lunch in the music wing. He held a coffee cup, the scent trailing behind him. "You were brave," he said quietly. "That wasn't an easy room." She nodded. "I almost didn't do it. But you did. And I'm proud of you." Jania looked down at her shoes. It wasn't perfect. No, he agreed. But it was honest. And sometimes that's more powerful. She looked up slowly. "Do you think I could do more with it?" He smiled. "I think you can do whatever you want with it." Jania didn't respond right away. But something inside her stirred again, that quiet shift, like the first tremble of spring under frozen ground. That afternoon, she sat outside on the front steps of the school, letting the sun warm her face. She didn't have music playing. Didn't have her hoodie pulled up. She wasn't hiding. She was thinking. She thought about how everything started with a joke. How they'd wanted her to fall apart, but instead she found something stronger than pride, dignity. She didn't need applause. She didn't need validation. They had tried to humiliate her. But she left them speechless. That weekend, Miss Edna wouldn't stop talking about it at church. She sang in front of the whole school. Had them so quiet, you'd think they was sitting in the Lord's own living room. Jania rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. "She's got the kind of voice that can't hide forever," Miss Edna continued proudly. "The kind that don't just sing notes, it sings stories." On Sunday evening, as the sunset bathed the chipped paint of their apartment walls in gold, Jania sat with her old MP3 player and listened to the same song again. "His Eye is on the Sparrow." She'd sung it 100 times. But now it felt different. Now, it felt like hers. The following Friday, Mr. Kinsey caught her after class. "There's a district vocal showcase coming up in a few weeks. It's not a competition, just students from different schools performing for each other. A celebration of music." She looked unsure. "You want me to sing?" "If you want to." She hesitated. "I don't know." He nodded thoughtfully. "You take your time. No pressure. But what you did on that stage, it wasn't just brave. It was art." Jania sat with that all weekend. The idea of singing again. On another stage. In front of even more people. The fear came back. The what-ifs. The shaky hands. But so did something else, her grandma's voice. "Sometimes it ain't about what you want. Sometimes it's about what somebody else needs to hear." That night, she whispered it to herself again. "I think I want to do it." And this time, she wasn't saying it for anyone else. She was saying it for her. Jania stood behind the curtain of the Springfield Civic Center with her palms damp and heart drumming like a snare. She clutched the program in her hand, her name printed in bold black ink next to her school's emblem. It still didn't feel real. Just a year ago, she'd been invisible. And now? Now she was standing backstage, moments away from singing in front of students, parents, and teachers from all across the district. She peeked out through the velvet curtain. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the floor. Parents murmured quietly. Teachers sipped coffee in thermoses. Kids in matching choir polos scrolled through their phones or huddled in friend groups. Her eyes found Miss Edna near the front. Third row, right side, same side she always sat on in church. Her purse was on her lap, and she was already smiling like she knew something everyone else didn't. She gave Jania a small wave. Mr. Kinsey stood off to the side, clipboard in hand, nodding at her gently. He didn't look nervous. Just proud. Her throat tightened. She didn't know if she could do it. But then she remembered what Miss Edna had told her just 2 nights ago. "A voice like yours don't belong to just you. It belongs to the ones who haven't found theirs yet." The curtain shifted. A student from another school finished a Broadway number to polite applause. Then a student MC stepped forward, reading from a card. "Next up, representing Westridge Middle School, please welcome Jania Brooks." For a split second, everything froze. Then her legs moved. One step. Another. Onto the stage. The lights were bright, but not blinding. The mic stood center stage, waiting. She walked slowly, deliberately. No tripping. No shaking. She reached the mic and took a breath. She wasn't wearing anything fancy, just black jeans, a sky blue blouse Miss Edna had found at Goodwill and pressed perfectly. Her hair was braided again, pulled back into a simple low bun. No flash. Just her. She didn't close her eyes this time. She looked straight ahead. Her voice, when it came, wasn't trembling or timid. It was sure. Rich. Warm. She sang a different song this time, "A Change Is Gonna Come," by Sam Cooke. It was her choice. It was her story. "I was born by the river, in a little tent." The crowd quieted. "And just like the river, I've been running ever since." Her voice rose with the second verse. Full of something deeper than melody, sorrow, hope, resistance. Every note carried the weight of being unseen, unheard. Every lyric tasted like both truth and defiance. Mr. Kinsey blinked, clearly stunned. Miss Edna had both hands clasped to her chest. It wasn't a flashy performance. It didn't need to be. What Jania gave them was something no rehearsal could teach. She gave them herself. When she reached the last line, "It's been a long time coming, but I know, the change gone, come," the last word lingered in the air, curling into silence. Then the applause began. Slow at first. Then louder. Then on their feet. It wasn't just Westridge students clapping. It was kids from other schools. Teachers. Parents. People who'd never heard of Jania Brooks before tonight. She stepped back from the mic, not smiling big, but with a quiet grace, and walked off stage as the applause still echoed behind her. Backstage, Mr. Kinsey was waiting. He said nothing. Just placed a hand on her shoulder and nodded. "You did it," he said. She didn't need more than that. In the car that night, Miss Edna didn't say much at first. She just drove through the quiet Springfield streets with the heater on and gospel music humming low from the radio. Then finally, she said, "You didn't sing that song. You delivered it." Jania looked out the window and smiled. "I was scared." Miss Edna nodded. "Good. Means you cared." There was a pause, then Jania whispered, "I want to do more. I want to learn how to really sing. Take lessons, maybe. I want to know what I can really do." Miss Edna grinned wide. "Then baby, we gon' figure it out." They rode the rest of the way home in silence. Not the silence of fear. But the silence of something just beginning. Over the next few months, life didn't turn into a movie montage. There were no record deals. No viral videos. But things shifted steadily. Mr. Kinsey connected Jania with a local vocal coach who offered lessons once a week at a nearby community center. The first lesson was awkward. Jania kept apologizing after every note. But her coach, a warm woman named Ms. Fields, smiled through every mistake. "You're not here to be perfect," she said. "You're here to learn. And girl, you got something raw. Let's shape it." Jania started staying after school to help with the choir, even though she wasn't officially in it yet. At first, some students raised eyebrows. But when she sang, they listened. Even Macy, who rarely acknowledged her, stopped by one day and muttered, "You sounded good at that showcase." Like, really good. Jania didn't need more than that. Connor remained quiet. She'd pass him in the hall sometimes. He'd glance at her, nod slightly, then keep walking. He wasn't cruel anymore. Just unsure. Like he was still trying to figure out how the girl he mocked into singing became the girl he now avoided. Sometimes Jania wondered if she should thank him. But she didn't. He hadn't meant to lift her up. And she didn't rise because of him. She rose because she chose to. Summer crept into Springfield slowly, first through the budding trees near Westridge's cracked sidewalks, then through the rising hum of lawnmowers, the distant bark of neighborhood dogs, and the smell of grills firing up on Friday nights. By June, Jania Brooks had nearly filled an entire notebook with lyrics. She didn't tell anyone at school that she was writing songs. Not even Mr. Kinsey. Not yet. She wasn't sure they were any good. But the words came fast some nights, after dinner, after her grandma had fallen asleep in the recliner, after the streetlights flicked on and the world got quiet. Some songs were just short verses. Some were whole stories. Some came with melodies that she hummed into her old MP3 recorder, quietly under her breath so no one else in the building could hear. They were about being overlooked, being laughed at, but mostly, they were about rising. One night, sitting cross-legged on the floor of her room with the fan whirring in the corner, she asked Miss Edna, "Do you think people like me ever make it?" Miss Edna, who was shelling peas into a bowl in her lap, didn't look up. "What's people like you, baby? You know. Poor. Quiet. From around here. People who don't already have a way in." Miss Edna finally glanced over. "Sugar, the way in ain't always through a door someone else opens. Sometimes you gotta build your own." Jania looked down at the lyrics in her lap. "I just don't want to stay stuck. Not forever." Miss Edna smiled, the kind of smile that came with deep knowing. "You ain't stuck. You're planted. And you're growing just fine." That stayed with her. By July, Miss Fields, her vocal coach, started pushing Jania harder. "You've got power, girl," she'd say after each lesson. "But power's only half the thing. What makes you unforgettable is that ache in your voice. That truth. You don't teach that. You live it." Jania started singing at community events, small ones. A church revival here. A block party there. Her name began to spread a little. She was still the same Jania, modest, soft-spoken, cautious. But now, people remembered her. Not as the poor girl from East Springfield. But as the girl who could sing like she'd seen something bigger than the room. Her confidence was slow growing, but steady. By the time August rolled in and school started back up, something had shifted inside her. She didn't walk the halls like a ghost anymore. She wasn't loud, but she wasn't hiding either. She looked people in the eye. She spoke up in class. She even sat closer to the front, no longer anchored to the corners of rooms. In choir, yes, she joined at last. She quickly became the one others watched during warm-ups. Even 8th graders turned to listen when it was her solo turn. Macy had joined the choir too and often glanced Jania's way during rehearsals, sometimes confused, sometimes almost impressed. After one rehearsal, Macy approached her at the water fountain. "You write your own songs?" Jania blinked. "A few." Macy nodded. "That's cool. I mean, most of us just sing what they give us." Jania shrugged, unsure how to respond. Macy leaned in, lowering her voice. "You know you kinda killed that solo, right? A beat past." "Thanks," Jania said. They weren't friends. But that wall between them? It was crumbling. One day, Mr. Kinsey handed her a flyer after class. Open mic night. Downtown. Youth showcase. All ages. Think about it. Jania stared at the page. Open mic. Not school. Not church. A real stage. Real strangers. Real risk. "I don't know," she said softly. "I think you do," he said. "You're just scared." She didn't deny it. That night, she brought the flyer home. Miss Edna read it, nodding. "You should go." Jania chewed her lip. "It's not like school. If I mess up." "You won't," Miss Edna said, calm as ever. "And even if you do, you'll still be heard." The night of the open mic, Jania stood in the back of a small coffeehouse downtown. The stage was barely a platform, the lighting dim, but the room was packed. Teenagers, college students, some older folks, all buzzing with energy. Some performers read poetry. Others played guitar. A few rapped. She waited quietly, heart thudding in her chest. When the host called her name, "Next up, we got Jania Brooks." A small round of applause followed. She stepped up slowly. Her sneakers squeaked against the wood floor again, just like they had at the Westridge audition. She adjusted the mic, took a breath. And this time, she sang a song she wrote herself. It didn't have a title. It didn't have polish. But it had heart. It was about silence, and survival, and the sound of her grandma's kitchen radio on Sunday mornings. Her voice filled the room, calm and steady, rising on the chorus like steam from cornbread. When she finished, it was quiet. Then someone clapped. Then someone else. Then the room erupted, not with noise, but with warmth. Not the kind of applause that demanded perfection. The kind that said, "We see you." That night, she sat on the steps outside the coffeehouse with a cup of hot cocoa and her notebook in her lap. Miss Edna was right beside her, wrapped in her knit shawl. "You're not invisible anymore," she whispered. Jania shook her head slowly. "I never was." Autumn rolled into Springfield like a slow breath, cool mornings, rust-colored leaves, and the smoky scent of fireplaces drifting through the neighborhoods. Westridge Middle, with its brick walls and rusting lockers, somehow felt newer to Jania. Maybe it hadn't changed. Maybe she had. Her performances at church, the district showcase, and the coffeehouse open mic had transformed more than just her reputation. They'd changed the way she saw herself. Not as a background character in everyone else's story, but as someone with a voice, a purpose, a name. People at school had started saying that name more often now. "Hey, Jania, got a new song. You trying out for the holiday concert, right?" Even teachers noticed. Her English teacher asked her to write lyrics for a Black History Month performance. Her science teacher joked that if she ever recorded an album, he wanted the first copy. And one Thursday after choir rehearsal, the school principal, Ms. Griggs, pulled her aside. "Mr. Kinsey says you've got something special." I believe him. "We're putting together a winter assembly. I'd love for you to close the program with a solo." Jania blinked. In front of the whole school. Every student, every teacher, every custodian, every parent who comes. "That auditorium is yours." Fear gripped her. But she said, yes. As the day of the winter assembly approached, nerves began whispering again. They crept in when she was brushing her teeth, when she was warming up at rehearsal, when she sat in her room rewriting the same chorus 5 different ways. Miss Edna noticed. "You've done this before, baby," she said while folding laundry. "This ain't new." Jania sat on the couch, hugging a pillow. "It's just, this is everyone. Even the ones who used to laugh at me. What if I mess up in front of them?" Miss Edna put down the towel and sat beside her. "Let me tell you something," she said, brushing Jania's hair off her forehead. "You don't sing to prove anything to them. You sing to remind yourself who you are. The rest? That's just background noise." The day of the assembly, the auditorium buzzed with energy. Parents shuffled in with coats and cameras. Students passed notes, elbowed each other, whispered behind hands. Backstage, Jania held her lyric notebook like a lifeline. Mr. Kinsey approached. "You ready?" "No," she said. He grinned. "Good. That means it matters." She walked onto the stage as the host announced her name, no smirks this time, no laughter. Just quiet anticipation. She stood at the mic, breathed in deep, and sang her own song, one she'd written just weeks before, called "Walk With Me." It was about struggle. About being overlooked. About having a voice that nobody expected until it was too late to ignore. Her voice rose and fell, full of tremble and truth. The auditorium, packed with students and teachers who used to look past her, now leaned forward in stunned silence. Even Connor. Especially Connor. He sat in the second row. And for the first time, he didn't look smug. He looked small. Not because she'd won. But because he finally saw her. When she hit the final line, "So I walk with the fire they tried to bury, burning bright for all to see," it landed like thunder. The applause was different this time. It wasn't shocked. It was proud. It rolled through the room like a rising tide. A few kids stood up. Then more. Miss Edna was already on her feet, tears streaking her cheeks. And Jania, she just stood there, smiling softly. Not because she needed the claps. But because she'd earned the silence that came before them. After the assembly, people crowded around her. "You wrote that? Can I hear it again? Do you have it on Spotify or something?" Macy approached too, more timid than usual. "That song, it was beautiful." "Thanks," Jania said. "You're not what I thought." Jania raised an eyebrow. "What did you think I was?" Macy shrugged. "Someone who'd crumble." "But you didn't." Jania smiled. "That's because you were looking at the shell, not the heart." That night, Jania and Miss Edna sat on the couch watching the video one of the teachers had posted online. It had already been shared by the school's page, and a few local groups. Comments were pouring in. "She's got soul. That girl's going places. Reminds me of when I first heard Andra Day." Jania closed the laptop and leaned against her grandmother's shoulder. "You think this could ever be more than just school stuff?" Miss Edna kissed her forehead. "I think it already is." Spring arrived with unexpected grace. It came in the form of pink blossoms cracking through bare branches, the warmth of sunbeams through classroom windows, and the ripple of a voice, Jania's voice, traveling far beyond the walls of Westridge Middle School. The winter assembly video had quietly gone viral in their town. Not millions of views, but thousands. It was shared by local churches, neighborhood groups, even picked up by a community radio station. The song, "Walk With Me," began to appear on TikTok videos made by other teens, some covering it, some lip-syncing with captions like, "This girl's voice just hit different." Jania wasn't sure how to feel about it at first. She didn't feel like a star. She still woke up in the same bed, still had to help Miss Edna fold laundry, still used a prepaid phone that cracked if you held it too tight. But something was shifting. One day, Mr. Kinsey called her into the music room after school. "You've got mail," he said, handing her an envelope. It was from the Springfield Youth Arts Foundation. She read it 3 times before she believed it. A full summer scholarship to their elite vocal program. Professional coaching. Studio time. A small performance tour. Miss Edna cried when she heard. Not big sobs, just soft, shaking joy. "You're flying now," she whispered. "You were always meant to." The day before the program began, Jania stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at herself. No more invisible. No more, just the quiet girl. She didn't recognize the girl in the reflection, confident, braided hair pulled back tight, wearing a second-hand denim jacket with her notebook stuffed in the back pocket. But she knew this, she had become the person she was always meant to be. That morning, as she zipped her duffel bag, Miss Edna walked into the room with something folded in her hands. A carefully ironed handkerchief wrapped around an old photograph. "This was me when I was your age," Miss Edna said, handing it over. Jania looked at the black and white image. A young girl in a choir robe, standing proud on the steps of a church, eyes full of fire. "You didn't tell me you used to sing. I never got the chance you got, baby. But I kept the music inside. And now, you carry it for both of us." At the Springfield Youth Arts Foundation, everything felt surreal. Polished floors. Grand pianos. Students with years of formal training, some with vocal coaches, some with resumes already. At first, Jania felt out of place. But when she opened her mouth to sing, none of that mattered. One of the instructors pulled her aside after the first workshop. "You don't sing like you've been trained. You sing like you've lived something. That's rare. And it's gold." She made friends, real ones. Singers from across the state. A girl from Kansas City who could belt like Beyoncé. A boy from St. Louis with a voice smooth as velvet. They weren't competitors. They were creators. And for the first time, Jania didn't just believe she belonged, she believed she could lead. She co-wrote a song with another student. Performed it during the final showcase of the summer. The auditorium, filled with families, coaches, and even a few scouts from nearby music schools, went silent again, just like Westridge had. That same hush, the kind born not from politeness, but awe. When it was over, the applause came in waves. One scout stopped her afterward. Handed her a card. "When you're ready," he said. "We'd like to help you get your music out there." Back in Springfield, Jania returned to Westridge for her final year with her head held high. Not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. She was no longer the girl they dared to embarrass. She was the girl who turned a mockery into a movement. One day during lunch, she saw a 7th grader sitting alone, head down, earbuds in, untouched tray of food. It was like looking into a mirror of her past self. Jania walked over and sat down without saying a word. After a few quiet moments, the girl looked up. "You're the one who sang that song last year." Jania smiled. "Yeah. That was me." The girl hesitated. "I write poems. But I don't know. People think it's weird." Jania leaned in. "You ever think maybe what's weird to them is just something they're too scared to understand?" The girl smiled, a little. Jania pulled her lyric notebook from her bag and slid it across the table. "Wanna write something together?" By the end of the year, Jania had recorded her first song in a local studio. With the help of Ms. Fields, Mr. Kinsey, and her growing support system, she uploaded it to Spotify and YouTube. No label. No agent. Just a girl who once sat alone in the back of a cafeteria, now letting her voice echo across the world. The title? Still Singing. Sometimes, the world dares you just to see you fall. But when you rise anyway, when you sing anyway, that's when you turn pain into power. Jania Brooks didn't just survive their joke, she transformed it into purpose. Her voice reminds us all that we are never truly invisible, just waiting to be heard. So the next time someone underestimates you, remember this. You don't need permission to shine. You just need one moment, and the courage to take it. Jania's journey is a reminder that the smallest voice can carry the loudest truth, if it dares to speak. If you've ever been overlooked, mocked, or made to feel like you don't belong, let this be your signal: you are enough. And the world needs your voice. Subscribe to True Echo for more stories like this. Drop a comment and tell us, what moment made you realize your voice mattered? And don't forget to share this video, because someone out there needs to hear it today.